Chapter 383. Tower spirits were not simple magic creations. They were a special kind of life form. They were very similar to elemental creatures, but they were different from elemental creatures. According to the template of society in his previous life, tower spirits should be a high-level artificial intelligence. Master, a cold mechanical voice sounded. From today onwards, your name is Milky Way. Sulen gave the new tower spirit a name. Yes, Master. Tower Spirit Milky Way is at your service. The new tower spirit quickly accepted its name. Hathaway began to add all kinds of information to Milky Way. A newly born tower spirit was not a blank piece of paper. Because of the remnant soul consciousness in the soul crystal, it usually received some simple general knowledge. However, this general knowledge was not enough to control the wizard tower. Hathaway needed to instill all kinds of knowledge into the tower spirit. With the continuous infusion of knowledge, the tower spirit quickly learned through a large amount of computing power and constantly grew. When Hathaway finished instilling all kinds of knowledge, she picked up the tower spirit's soul core and went to the 7th floor of the wizard tower. The 7th floor of the wizard tower was divided into two parts. One was the astrology platform, and the other was the control center. The control center had been completed long ago, but because there was no tower spirit, it was empty. Now that the tower spirit was completed, it naturally had to be placed in the control center. Only in this way, the tower spirit could control the wizard tower and assist Sulen and Hathaway in controlling the wizard tower. In the empty control hall, there was nothing other than the control center. The floor here was paved with white marble, and it was enchanted with a hardening spell. Its hardness was far greater than that of steel. A large number of energy channels were laid under the marble, and these energy channels were all connected to the control center. Hathaway arrived in front of the control panel in the middle. This stone platform wasn't made of stone, but it looked like it was made of stone. Hathaway had used several dozen kinds of magic materials to create it, and it had a very strong magic conductivity. A large number of magic patterns had already been engraved on the control panel. In the middle of these magic patterns, there was a groove. With a light tap of her finger, several rays of magic light flashed, and the control center slowly rose. Hathaway took the tower spirit's soul core, and then placed the soul core into the groove. With a light snap, the soul core was tightly sealed. With a flash of light, the runic array of the control center was activated, and the entire console emitted a dazzling magic light. The energy of the elemental pool was instantly activated, and a huge amount of elemental energy flowed into the control center through the energy channel. Then, a powerful soul wave came, and the surrounding magic patterns all lit up. Master Tower Spirit Milky Way has successfully taken over the Sorcerer Tower. Self-check mode is in progress. The elemental pool is functioning normally. The Sorcerer Tower's energy channel is functioning normally. The Sorcerer Tower's security is functioning normally. The Golem Squad is moving normally. The Ecological Garden is functioning normally. The dungeon is not activated. The isolation room is not activated. The laboratory is functioning normally. Self-examination complete. Magus functions normally. Would you like to restart the Sorcerer Tower? After rebooting, the Sorcerer Tower will be fully taken over by Tower Spirit Milky Way. Sulen asked, will restarting the Wizard Tower affect the ongoing experiments or other things? No. When the Adept Tower is reactivated, it will reserve a portion of energy to maintain normal operation. Then restart it, Sulen said. Restarting. Following the cold voice of In-He, the light of the control center gradually dimmed, and the elemental energy continued to decrease. Prepare to restart. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Restart. The elemental pool is operating, beginning to supply energy. The magic array is activated. The energy channel is beginning to self-check. Self-examination complete. Beginning energy transfer. A huge amount of elemental energy instantly gushed out from the elemental pool and was transferred to various parts of the Sorcerer Tower along the energy channel. Beginning to scan the structure of the Sorcerer Tower. Scan complete. Constructing a three-dimensional model. A ray of light flashed, and a large amount of light suddenly appeared in front of Hathaway and Sulen. Then the light gathered, and a three-dimensional model quickly appeared in front of the two of them. It was the three-dimensional model of the Sorcerer Tower. This model had all the places of the Sorcerer Tower marked, and it could be enlarged, shrunk, or rotated according to the movements of the two of them. Every part of the Sorcerer Tower could be analyzed and observed. It was very intuitive. Three-dimensional model construction completed. The Golem squad is moving, resetting the patrol route. The patrol route has been revised, cleaning and repairing 28 loopholes. The isolation room is functioning normally. The laboratory is moving normally. The ecological garden is functioning normally. Alert mode activated. As Inhi's voice sounded, the Sorcerer Tower once again resumed its normal operation. The Sorcerer Tower is functioning normally. Hathaway and Sulen looked at each other and smiled. It seemed that this tower genie had done a good job. Master, please set the permissions. Sulen and I are set to the highest permissions, Hathaway said directly. Setting complete. Chris, Karina, Alex, Grace, Phyllis, Anna, and Angela are set to level 7 permissions. All Sorcerer Apprentices are set to level 2 permissions. Sorcerer Lorraine and Sorcerer Andre are set to level 4 permissions. Permissions setting complete. As a ray of light rose, the various permissions were divided. As the Tower Genie took over the Sorcerer Tower, Sulen and Leylin had full control of the Sorcerer Tower. Inhi, activate the three-dimensional model of the Sorcerer Tower. Scan the energy channels and the surrounding ley line network. Hathaway stood in the middle of the hall and said, along with a faint golden light, a ring of light suddenly appeared in the control center. The ring of light paused for a few seconds, and in the next second, the ring of light rapidly expanded. In just a moment, it turned into a ray of light that could not be seen by the naked eye and spread out. The light quickly scanned the Sorcerer Tower, and then Inhi's cold mechanical voice sounded again. Model activated. The model of the Sorcerer Tower appeared in front of Sulen. Hathaway gently waved her hand, and the model of the Sorcerer Tower was instantly divided into a dozen different areas. Hathaway marked out some of the areas, and then slowly said, begin calculating the energy transmission efficiency of the Sorcerer Tower. Establishing mission. Mission established. Data collection complete. Beginning calculation. The light flashed, and Inhi began to calculate quickly. Starting from the elemental pool, the magic rune marks in every position of the Sorcerer Tower began to appear, and they were constantly combined in the three-dimensional model. After a few minutes, the light disappeared. Calculation complete. The current energy transmission efficiency of the Sorcerer Tower is 63%. Recommend Master to optimize the internal structure. Inhi's cold voice sounded. Optimize. Inhi's cold mechanical voice sounded again. Begin optimizing the internal structure of the Sorcerer Tower. Calculation in progress. Optimization complete. Generating three-dimensional model. Model completed. Optimization plan generated. Add an energy hub in the energy transmission channel in the basement. Modify the energy hearing route in the hall on the first floor. Add more magic rune engravings on the magic rune nodes on the third floor. And add 3 energy transformation hubs on the 5th floor. Estimated consumption. 35 units of magic crystals, 20 magic gems, 12 ounces of arcane dust, stardust. After optimization, the Sorcerer Tower's energy efficiency will be increased by 17.6%, and daily energy consumption will be reduced by 12%. Seeing the new optimization plan, Hathaway nodded. Record the optimization plan. With the help of the Tower Genie, the management of the Sorcerer Tower was a lot easier. Sulen and Hathaway were relieved. Next, they needed to start optimizing the Sorcerer Tower according to the modification plan of the Tower Genie. Other than optimizing the Sorcerer Tower, Sullen's Sorcerer Tower still had a lot of things to build. For example, the Sorcerer Tower's attack system and the Sorcerer Tower's defense system. These two facilities were very important. Normally, a sorcerer tower needed to be protected by the sorcerer tower. The sorcerer tower was a special magic technique. It was weaved with magic energy. It was a powerful enchantment that covered a large area. It had a simple consciousness. The sorcerer tower could also record all kinds of spells and store magic energy. At the same time, those who had access to the sorcerer tower could use all kinds of power within the sorcerer tower. It could be said that with the sorcerer tower, one's combat power within the sorcerer tower would be doubled. The sorcerer tower could not only record spells, but it also had the ability to suppress magic. The spells recorded in the sorcerer tower could be changed. The sorcerer tower's ability to suppress magic was much more limited than Sullen's sorcerer tower. It could only suppress a single series or type of spell. It was not easy to build a large sorcerer tower. The cost of such a sorcerer tower was very high, and Sulen did not have the craftsmanship to make the sorcerer tower. The sorcerer tower was highly confidential. Sulen did not have enough money to build such a thing, so he planned to build a magic enchantment for the sorcerer tower first. In addition to the sorcerer tower also needed an attack system. This attack system was not to deal with the golem puppets, but it was a trump card. For example, the sorcerer particle railgun, the sorcerer crystal pulse railgun, and many other powerful weapons. For example, the sorcerer particle railgun. This thing's attack power was very exaggerated. Even if a legendary sorcerer was hit, he would not be able to escape. If the sorcerer tower was hit, he would die on the spot. This kind of powerful weapon had existed since the era of the Arcane Empire. After the Arcane Empire's era, this technology had been improved many times and became even more powerful. The sorcerers were now using the improved technology, but it was rarely used. However, although this kind of weapon was very powerful, it was not suitable to be equipped because this kind of weapon consumed too much energy. A sorcerer particle railgun required a variety of materials. Mithril was only a part of it. There were more than a dozen other materials. It was not easy to build, and this kind of technology needed to be supplemented. Chapter 384. It was now June. The northern wasteland was lush and full of life. Northern Town had become even more prosperous. Since the beginning of the month, there had been more caravans coming to Northern Town. Apart from the caravans, there were also many nobles from different countries. "This is the 20th noble, right?" a peddler on the street whispered. "The 21st. A shoemaker who was mending a pair of boots added. "So many nobles are here to celebrate our Lord's founding," the peddler said excitedly. The itinerant man said excitedly, "I really hope more nobles will come. Then I can earn more money." "Hey Jack, you've made about 3 silver nars this month, right?" "Don't be too greedy," the shoemaker said. "You're talking like you've made less money, Harry." Jack glanced at him and said, "Hee. I really want to earn 5 gold nars as soon as possible so that I can have my own piece of land here." Jack said with a sigh, "Yes, thanks to our kind Lord. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to save enough money to buy a piece of land," Harry said with a smile. Harry smiled and said, "This month, our Lord is going to officially establish a duchy. May the gods protect our Lord and our country." When night fell, Jack walked briskly to the market. Every day, when the market was about to close, he would come here to buy some cheap food. Northern Town had a lot of seafood, so the price was not expensive. Now that the market was about to close, the price was even lower. A 2-pound fish only cost 8 copper nars. When the market was about to close, the price was even lower. If it was a dead fish, it would only cost 4 copper nars. Although it was a dead fish, it had been dead for less than a day. His son was lucky. Now he could eat fish soup every now and then. When he was young, he couldn't even eat enough potatoes, let alone meat soup. It was really a good time. Jack's house was on the west side of the outer town. It was a small house with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room. He lived here with his wife and 3 children. The house was small and shared a yard with several other families. Outside, there was a drainage ditch. There were 3 faucets in the yard. There were some empty spaces in the yard for drying clothes. There were also a few chicken cages next to the yard. There were a few hens in the cages. The eggs that the hens laid would be accumulated and sold at the market when there were enough eggs. As a commoner who had lived here for almost a year, Jack had his own plans. He wasn't like some people who enjoyed a good life and lived a careful life. He planned to work hard to earn money and buy a few acres of land when the price of land in Northern Town was low. Then, when his two sons grew up, his elder son would continue to be a peddler, his younger son would work as a farmer, and his daughter would find a good husband and give them a dowry. This way, their family would be able to take root in Northern Town. At the thought of this, Jack's heart was burning with passion. He could be considered worthy of his 3 children. When their grandfather and his father died, not to mention the land, even the house was in ruins. The inheritance that he left for them was already much better than his father's. When Jack returned home, he found that Hanson's family, who used to live in the same yard, had moved away. Hanson's son, Bernie, had successfully joined the army of Northern Town. His family had also left the commoners' class. The soldiers in North Town City were paid handsomely, and their families were allowed to have their own houses. It wasn't like the 40-square-meter house he was currently living in, where 5 or 6 families were squeezed together. It was a real house with a courtyard. As long as they became soldiers, they would be treated very well. The army provided food and shelter, and they could eat meat every day. This was something that countless commoners envied. After becoming soldiers, Northern Town would also distribute land. Could be said that as long as they became soldiers, their family wouldn't have to worry about food anymore. However, it wasn't easy to become a soldier. Every day they had to undergo cruel training. If they were eliminated during training, they could only become a militia. The treatment of a militia was far worse than that of a soldier. Jack once wanted to join the army, but he gave up after trying. People died in war. His son wanted to join the army, but Jack didn't agree. Now, he just wanted to live a stable life and make his family better little by little. Northern Town was under construction every day. Although many places were completed, there were still a lot of empty spaces in the city. These empty spaces would naturally be used for construction in the future. The most important thing in Northern Town now was to prepare for the Lord's founding celebration. The entire Northern Town was busy preparing for this. For the celebration, every street in the city had to be cleaned. Trees and flowers were planted on both sides of the road. The city was decorated with beautiful flowers. Perhaps Northern Town wasn't as prosperous as the cities in the Southern Alliance, nor was it as populous as the capital of Florence. However, anyone who came here first felt that everything was solemn and neat. Everything was in order. The refugees from various countries quickly got used to the order of the city. They accepted their new life and quickly integrated into it. In just over 2 years, such a magnificent city had appeared in the northern wasteland. The sea breeze from the eastern sea brought enough rain to the northern wasteland. Many caravans from the Kingdom of Florence came to Northern Town along the road to the northern wasteland. Carts of goods were transported to the warehouse by laborers. These were the goods and daily necessities that Northern Town had purchased from various countries. For example, cloth, oil, slaves, spices, salt, preserved fruits, and enchanted materials. The number of slaves purchased by the Northern Town City had never decreased. The slave trade used to be the Northern Town City's biggest business. The Northern Town City would purchase around 2,000 slaves every month, so the population of the Northern Town City had been growing rapidly. Northern Town also produced salt, but the output was average. The salt produced here was rock salt. It had a high content of impurities, so it needed to be filtered. Salt production also required a lot of people. Couldn't compare to the big salt lakes in other places. Therefore, the salt mines didn't expand their production. Dark clouds came from the southeast. Could be foreseen that a heavy rain was about to hit. Many merchants were busy packing up. The carriages were stored in special garages. The horses were also driven into the stables. The coolies and porters were shouting to speed up the transportation of goods. The weather in June was unpredictable. They knew that a storm would come and go as it wished. The merchants moved their goods to their shops. However, the tavern 2 streets away was still very lively. Because of the prosperous trade in the northern wasteland, many mercenaries came here with caravans every year. At the same time, many adventurers used the tavern as a base to explore the northern wasteland. Many adventurers and mercenaries liked to squander the money they earned in a short period of time. Taverns were built one after another in northern town. At the same time, some seafood merchants with a keen sense of smell came here to sell abalone. Although the drinks and food in northern town were good, the ratio of men to women in the city was a bit imbalanced. The ratio of men to women in the city was about 6-4. This was mainly because Sulen didn't buy female slaves when he first bought slaves. Although he later plundered a lot of people in the northern wasteland and his territory became more populated and alleviated the problem of the ratio of men to women to a certain extent, the number of seafood merchants in the taverns decreased. Mercenaries and adventurers were willing to spend money. This phenomenon lasted for a month or two. Many seafood merchants heard the news and came to northern town. Sulen didn't stop this situation. After all, these seafood merchants maintained the stability of the society to a certain extent. Otherwise, those mercenaries and adventurers who were bored out of their minds might not take the risk. There were many civilians in northern town. Some of these civilians were craftsmen. After hearing that northern town was rich, they came to live here. These civilians rarely left after coming here. This was because they only needed to spend a little money to obtain land here. Moreover, life in northern town was stable. There weren't many exorbitant taxes, so they didn't have to worry about the nobles seizing their property. Compared to other cities, this place was like heaven. A caravan slowly approached the city gate. The tax officer who was already at the gate walked over quickly with 2 soldiers. "Where are you from? What kind of goods are you selling? You have to pay 10% tax to trade here. Also, all goods are not allowed to be traded outside. You have to go to the trading market in the city." The tax officer walked up and said. Soon, a man dressed like a manager of the caravan came to negotiate with the tax officer. The tax officer recorded the information while checking the goods for contraband. After a while, the tax officer finished checking and took out a special piece of paper to record the goods. After confirming the goods, the tax officer asked the merchant to sign. After completing the transaction, the tax officer would give the merchant a token. This was the certificate of permission to trade. Only those who had the token could trade in northern town. Soon, the tax officer finished recording and left. It was going to rain soon. Although he was a tax officer, he didn't collect taxes. He was only responsible for recording the goods of the caravan. He would only collect taxes when the caravan entered the market. The caravan moved forward again. At this time, a few cloaked figures left the caravan. They nodded at the manager of the caravan and gently knocked on the belly of their horses. They left the caravan and entered the city. "So this is northern town? It's so prosperous in the north. Do you see that tall tower? There are actually wizards building wizard towers in this place. Do you feel it? The concentration of elemental energy here is very high." Chapter 385. Yes, the elemental concentration here is at least twice as high as the outside world. Another old voice sounded. "It seems that the Lord of Northern City isn't as simple as we thought." The older man glanced around and said, "This place is indeed different from what we imagined. We've seen many cities before and we know what they look like. The first impression I got from this city is that it's clean, and then it's orderly. Along the way, whether it's called City, Cold Winter City, Monster City, or Port Tylon, you can smell the stench from afar, the terrible traffic and chaotic order. I really don't understand how the nobles manage the cities, and the streets are full of poor people in ragged clothes. Compared to those places, Northern City is simply heaven. Although it's still hard to live here, it's better than starving to death. The air and environment here are also very good. I can't imagine that this place was a wasteland 2 years ago." Along the way, they saw the poverty and filth under the appearance of prosperity in various countries. During those times of chaos and poverty, this place was orderly, and the lives of the commoners were very good. "Let's go to the tavern to collect some information." At the same time, In a corner of the city gate, a few figures noticed the two men who had left the caravan. One of them said, "Boss, who's here this time? Do we need to report it? It's closest to Northern City, and there are all kinds of people here." Under the dim light, the drow quickly recorded some information and said. Another drow looked for a while and said, "Two wizards. Record it and report it later. Let people pay attention to it, but don't pay too much attention. They won't break the rules casually." Under normal circumstances, wizards rarely intervened in mortal affairs. This had always been a matter of convention. Most of the time, wizards wouldn't even take the initiative to expose themselves to society. They were also known as the mysterious ones among the commoners. Since coming to Northern City, Sulen had led them to victory again and again, which gave them a kind of blind confidence. Even if the two wizards dared to make a move here, they would be discovered immediately. They were confident that they could get rid of these slaves. Two wizards walked into the city. They observed everything while chatting. The fame of Northern Town City had spread far and wide with the help of the caravans. There were many rumors about this pearl of the northern region, and the majestic buildings in Northern Town City had also spread far and wide. Whether it was the exquisite structure of the elevated aqueduct, the solemn Arc de Triomphe, or the magnificent and magical sky garden, these buildings were said to be miraculous. Many people listened to them as myths, but in fact, even those who spread the word did not know that these buildings really had various miraculous effects. "Madam." The workers on both sides of the road bowed and lowered their heads, not daring to look at her. The little succubus Chris had been in charge of the expansion of the Lord's castle. In order to establish a duchy, Sullen's Lord's mansion needed to be upgraded into a palace. Chris glanced at the crowd and said slowly, "Everyone else, leave. Architect, come with me." The Lord's castle in Northern Town City didn't have a master architect when it was built. So many parts of it weren't built properly. Now, Sulen needed to transform the Lord's mansion into a magnificent palace. It was very suitable for Chris to do this. As a succubus, they didn't think about tempting other people every day. Anyone who had been to the succubus territory knew that the succubus queen commanded many succubi to transform a lower realm into a paradise. Those were the masterpieces of succubi and all kinds of craftsmen. Therefore, Chris's artistic skills were very high. Sullen's palace was built on the foundation of the Lord's castle. The whole building looked like a whole. The design of the palace was made by everyone, and then it was finally confirmed after Sulen confirmed and modified some parts. The palace was slightly bigger than the Lord's castle. It was located on the west side of the Harvest Altar, in the center of Northern Town City. A lot of white marble was used to build the palace. During the construction, spells like mud to stone were used. The structure of the palace was very sturdy, and the ground was extravagantly enchanted with some hardening spells. The palace even had part of the power of the Wizard Tower. As the palace of Northern Wind Duchy, Sulen didn't want to lower the security of his palace. Sulen even planned to build an elemental pool and rune barrier in the palace. Of course, the construction cost of his palace was still not as high as the Wizard Tower next to it. After all, there was no tower spirit in the palace, nor was there a big waste of money like an ecological garden. Even so, it would cost 600,000 to 700,000 kinner to complete the palace. Right now, the palace was only the outline of a building. The main building of the palace had been completed, but there were still many places that needed to be engraved with magic patterns and set up with magic circles. When the palace was completed, the energy field of the palace could be connected to the Wizard Tower. At the same time, Sulen also planned to include the miracle buildings in Northern Town City. When the palace was completed, its energy field could cover the entire city and even some of the territory outside the city. This was a huge project. In order to complete it, he might need the help of a legendary wizard like Hathaway. There were beautiful reliefs on the walls of the palace. Some of them were engraved with myths and legends. Some of them were engraved with Sullen's achievements, from him becoming a pioneer noble, to him building Northern Town City, defeating all kinds of enemies in the wilderness, and becoming the overlord of the Northern Wilderness. At the moment, only a part of these reliefs was completed. there was still a lot of space left on the surrounding walls. These spaces were used to engrave Sullen's achievements in the future. There might be racial wars or even national wars with other countries. The sculptors would continue to engrave Sullen's achievements in reliefs on the walls of the palace. Legendary wars, large-scale wars involving tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of people. If the outstanding generals of Northern Wind Duchy did something important, they would also be engraved. The Palace of Northern Town City was built in Baroque style. In addition to many sculptures, there were also many curved and oval-shaped buildings. In the hall of the palace, there were 36 tall white marble pillars supporting it. The hall was elegant and grand with a soft shape. The interior decoration was gorgeous. The dome was oval, with some flying angels and Pegasi engraved on it. The hall was spacious and could easily accommodate thousands of people. In the center of the hall was a platform about half a meter high. On the platform was Sullen's throne. Northern Town City's actions during this time attracted the attention of the countries in the northeast. After all, the birth of a new country had a certain impact on the surrounding countries. During this time, many uninvited people came to Northern Town City to inquire about information. They hid their identities, disguised themselves as merchants, or disguised themselves as adventurers, and observed in the dark. Sulen sent out all the drows in the city and had them monitor these people. At the same time, he also increased the number of city guards. The previous security team had now been upgraded to the city guard army, and the number of people had increased to 1,000. After all, it was a city with a population of 100,000. Relying on a security team of only 300 people was already a bit of a stretch. After learning about the rise of Sulen, these people did not jump out. From what they knew, Sulen had lost at least 3 legendary figures. There were not many legendary figures in a country, less than 5 on one hand. Now that Sulen had lost several legendary figures, it was enough to make these countries tremble in fear. Although a lot of people came to Northern Citadel during this time, there wasn't any chaos in the city. Su Luan had been flexing his muscles during this time. He sent out the 16 barbarian marauders and had them lead other barbarians to patrol the city. At the same time, the half-elf magic archers and half-elf rangers began to patrol the city. The appearance of so many Tier 3 and Tier 4 experts caused many people to be shocked. Such a powerful combat force was something that many kingdoms could not compare to. The entire Northern Town City was astonishingly calm. In the blink of an eye, a week had passed. When the palace in Northern Town City was completed, the founding ceremony of Northern Wind Principality was about to begin. The entire Northern Town City was in a state of nervous preparation. Countless gazes were focused on the city. The army of Northern Town City also distributed new military uniforms. In the past, Northern Town City did not have any military uniforms. Because of the founding ceremony, Sulen had ordered uniforms for the army of Northern Town City. Many civilians of Northern Town City had changed into their new uniforms. The workers of Northern Town City had also prepared all kinds of uniforms. With the help of the half-elven druids, the decorations of the city were completed. Trees were planted on both sides of the streets, and flowers of various colors were planted in the flower beds on both sides of the roads. These flowers were all in full bloom. The entire city was surrounded by flowers today. Today, the various temples of Northern Town City had also participated. Although Sulen did not agree to accept the coronation of their pope, they would still participate in Sullen's ceremony. After all, as the Lord of Northern Town City, if they really pissed him off, Sulen could use all kinds of rules to restrict them from developing their churches. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the various temples would try to maintain a good relationship with the local lord. The first rays of the morning sun scattered, and the orange sun slowly rose from the east. A melodious bell slowly rang. Countless people walked out of their homes and headed to the various plazas. Today was the day Northern Wind Principality was officially founded. Chapter 386. In the Northern Wasteland, when the first ray of sunlight pierced through the darkness, the light of dawn flashed across the astrology platform on the top floor of the Wizard Tower in the Northern Wasteland. As the first ray of sunlight appeared, the bell in the northern wasteland city rang loudly. The quiet northern wasteland city was awakened at this moment. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dozens of magic fireworks shot into the sky, piercing through the darkness before dawn. They bloomed beautifully in the sky. The entire city turned into a sea of joy at this moment. The royal palace of the northern wasteland city. Outside the newly renovated royal palace, rows of well-equipped spear guards stood straight on both sides of the road. The roofs around the royal palace had been occupied by half-elf archers. The main roads of the city had been cleared. The wide and straight road extended all the way to the royal palace. The streets were covered with red carpets, and all kinds of flower petals were falling from the sky. All the residents of the northern wasteland city stood on both sides of the road, waving their arms and cheering. At this moment, a few black shadows quickly approached from the sky. The sound of wings flapping could be heard. With the first ray of sunlight, a group of people appeared in the sky. 9 giant Cryopterus bodies appeared in the sky. Although these pterosaurs were only 2 years old, their wingspan was already more than 6 meters. There was a drow knight sitting on each Cryopterus. Their armor made of fine iron was not heavy. It set off their tall and slender bodies. The ferocious pterosaurs under them looked extraordinary. However, they were not the main characters. They were only the vanguard guards leading the way. Behind these Cryopterus knights, a majestic Pegasus flew across the sky. Sulen had a sword at his waist, and he was wearing a gorgeous silver armor. He was riding the Pegasus at full speed. The morning glow in the sky covered them with a layer of golden red light, making them look like gods emitting a golden light. Long live Sulen! Long live the Northwind Principality! After seeing the figures in the sky, the cheers sounded in unison. The army of the northern wasteland city cheered in unison. Their voices were deafening. The residents around them also cheered. Their voices echoed through the sky. Some people in the northern battlefront city were watching the ceremony from afar. As long as they did not approach the important areas of the city, the hidden guards would not chase them away. Sulen chose to hold the founding ceremony at dawn, the last touch of darkness before dawn. Then, he waited for the first ray of sunlight to pierce through the darkness and descend from the sky. Accompanied by a golden radiance, Sulen descended from the sky with 9 winged dragon knights. The winged dragon knights glided in midair before taking off again. Sulen rode his Pegasus and landed on the red carpet covered with flowers 100 meters away from the Arc de Triomphe. The Pegasus raised its head to the sky and neighed, gently kicking its hooves. At this moment, the bell rang again, leisurely spreading throughout the entire city. It was like an order. The entire northern town city was filled with symphonic music. The bells and drums rang together, solemn music resounding in the city. A ray of golden light descended from the sky. The path under the Pegasus' feet instantly solidified. It was as bright as gold, but it was not vulgar. The golden path extended from under his feet all the way to the northern town city palace. Sulen smiled casually. He gently squeezed the horse's belly. The Pegasus snorted and stepped on the golden light. As he kept moving forward, the residents on both sides of the path knelt on the ground one by one. As he kept moving forward, the people in the crowd knelt down in rows like dominoes. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps. As Sulen kept moving forward, the solemn Arc de Triomphe emitted a faint spiritual light. As he kept getting closer, the spiritual light became brighter and brighter. At the same time, a faintly discernible song sounded around the Arc de Triomphe, and it became clearer and clearer. Finally, as Sulen came to the front of the Arc de Triomphe, the song became deafening. Dozens of faint golden figures could be seen on the Arc de Triomphe. These figures were all wearing armor and holding weapons. Their cold faces appeared. They were the faces of all the sacrifices since the founding of the northern town city. War souls. These soldiers who died on the battlefield did not disappear. Instead, they became army souls and entered the Arc de Triomphe. If they were given enough time, these army souls would gradually transform into heroic spirits. At this time, These army souls woke up from their deep sleep and escorted Sullen's coronation. Seeing this, Sullen's footsteps paused slightly. Then, as if nothing had happened, he continued to move forward. At this time, he had already sensed that a few miracle buildings in the city had been activated by themselves. Rays of spiritual light rose up and covered the entire city. In the magnificent song, Sullen gradually walked into the palace of the northern town city. At this time, the song stopped, and the cheers sounded again. In the uniformed cheers of the army, the originally uneven voices merged into one. Soon, all the voices merged into one. The loud voice soared into the sky and echoed in the sky above the northern town city. Even the clouds in the sky were scattered by this powerful sound. In the palace hall, the spacious hall was now filled with people. Several countries that were close to Sullen had sent envoys. Many nobles' envoys were also present. Next to these people were the senior members of the temples of the various churches in the northern town city. Today, they were all here to watch and witness the ceremony. Sullen came to the entrance of the hall and jumped off his horse. Hathaway, Chrissy, Alex, and Phyllis, who had been waiting here for a long time, all put on their best clothes and waited with smiles on their faces. Sullen nodded to them and walked in front. Hathaway held onto Sullen's arm and walked half a step behind him. The others followed closely behind. The group was led to the hall by a few maids and then stepped onto the central platform. Several other half-elf maids came up with a few trays with crowns on them. Sullen reached out and picked up a gorgeous crown and put it on his head. Then he put the crowns on Hathaway, Chrissy, Alex, and Phyllis. Special envoy from the King of the Kingdom of Florence congratulates the Duke of Northern Wind on his coronation. After Sullen put on the crown and sat on the throne, the prepared envoy stepped forward and bowed to the nobles before congratulating Sullen. The special envoy from the Kingdom of Florence opened the curtains, followed by many special envoys from other kingdoms and nobles who came forward to congratulate him. Special envoy from the Kingdom of Lorenza congratulates the Duke of Northern Wind on his coronation. Special envoy from the Kingdom of Amher congratulates the Duke of Northern Wind on his coronation. Special envoy from Marquis Savoy of Cult congratulates the Duke of Northern Wind on his coronation. All the nobles' envoys, including the Kingdom of Lorenza and the Kingdom of Amher, came forward to congratulate Sullen. Soon, the churches in the northern town city also came forward to congratulate him on the establishment of the Duke of Northern Wind. After these people finished their congratulations, Sullen stood up. Ha ha ha! He laughed and took 2 steps forward. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the establishment of the Duke of Northern Wind and my coronation. His voice was loud and clear. In an instant, the clouds parted and the sun rose in the sky. The dazzling sunlight shone on Sullen as if he was the only one in the world. In the hall and in the square, thousands of people stood on both sides of the square. Their burning gazes were all focused on Sullen. There was reverence, joy, admiration, and fear. At this moment, all of them gathered together. I announce the establishment of the Duke of Northern Wind. In the name of the Duke of Northern Wind, I announce that today is the National Day of the Duke of Northern Wind. At the same time, I confer Hathaway, Chris, Alex, and Phyllis as duchesses. Hearing Sullen's words, the surrounding nobles looked at each other. It was the first time that 4 duchesses were conferred at once. For a moment, the nobles' envoys in the hall whispered to each other. Hathaway stood up and walked to Sullen's side, snorting softly. Her voice was low, but it seemed to ring in their ears. In an instant, the whole hall quieted down. Then, a powerful energy wave surged from Hathaway's body. Even the jade ornaments in the surroundings were blown back and forth by this force. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Legendary wizard. How is this possible? A 20-year-old legendary wizard. So strong. After feeling the energy wave from Hathaway's body, the nobles' envoys, who had just fallen silent, suddenly burst into an uproar. They looked at Hathaway in disbelief. In this world, A legendary wizard's deterrence was much stronger than a legendary warrior's. After all, no matter how strong a legendary warrior was, it was still very difficult for one to destroy a city. However, a legendary wizard was different. They had too many ways to destroy a city: meteor shower, meteor fall, undead calamity, and many other powerful spells. They could even permanently change the environment of an area. After knowing that Hathaway had become a legendary wizard, the nobles' envoys, who were whispering to each other, quieted down instantly. They were all as honest as quails. A legendary wizard's deterrence was very high. At this time, Sulen chose to show his strength. With a legendary warrior and a legendary wizard in charge, the Duchy of Beifeng's position was instantly stabilized. After all, many duchies didn't even have a legendary wizard. A young legendary wizard. This was simply shocking. It was not as easy to become a legendary wizard as a legendary warrior. There were very few duchies in the continent that had a legendary wizard in charge, and they all needed to support these legendary wizards' experiments. The annual cost of Kinner was a huge figure, but there were still many people who were willing to do it. Compared to warriors, wizards had a much longer lifespan. As long as there were no accidents, they could live for thousands of years. Chapter 387. A large amount of data flashed past Sullen's eyes. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. Country template is being activated. Country data is being calculated. Data conversion in progress. Data calculation complete. Country template activated. Countless streams of data appeared before Sullen's eyes. A large amount of information appeared and disappeared quickly. Soon, all the data disappeared, and a template appeared before his eyes. Country, Northwind Dukedom. Location: Northern Wastelands, Underground World, Territories. Northgard City, Mirror Lake City, Centaur City, Orundo, City of the Grey Dwarves, Crete City, City of the Taurens. Omitted. Will be added later. The country template looked simple, but it contained many meanings. After establishing the dukedom, not only were the 3 cities in the Northern Wastelands included, even the cities in the underground world were included in the dukedom. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. The reward is the Imperial Jade Seal. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. You have received an exclusive troop class. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. You have received the title King of the North. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. You have received a diamond treasure chest. Congratulations, host. You have successfully established a dukedom. You have received a miracle building blueprint. A series of system notifications sounded in Sullen's ears. He did not expect that establishing a dukedom would give him so many rewards. At the same time, after the dukedom was successfully established, a powerful elemental energy gathered at the harvest altar in Northgard City. The energy in the surroundings was also attracted by this power. Those who were participating in the celebration and those who were hiding in the dark could all feel this power. This energy was somewhat different from ordinary elemental energy. It felt like the energy of a druid. What kind of energy is this? It seems like the energy of nature, but there are some differences. This energy has reached the legendary level. Could it be another legendary expert? That's impossible. No, this seems to be the energy of a magical building. At the same time, just as everyone was feeling puzzled, 2 other forces rose up from 2 other places in the city. The triumphal arch was surrounded by a faint spiritual light. After Sulen entered the palace and completed the founding ceremony and coronation, the war spirits all returned to the triumphal arch. However, at this time, a huge amount of energy was extracted, and the triumphal arch suddenly shone brightly. The arcane garden was also glowing with light, and a beautiful song could be heard. At this moment, 3 forces were released at the same time. Harvest Blessing. Song of Triumph. Arcana Praise. 3 consecutive blessings exploded and enveloped the entire northern garrison city. Su Len looked at the system interface in shock. He saw 3 buffs in the northern fortress town. Harvest blessing. This city has received a blessing. During this period of time, the crops in the city will not be affected by pests and diseases. The yield will increase by 50% and the maturity period of the crops will be shortened by 15%. The duration will last for 1 year. Song of Triumph. When the Song of Victory is played, the morale of the entire city will increase by 50%. The rate of residents joining the army will increase by 50%. The sense of belonging among the residents of the northern garrison city will also increase by 20%. Arcana Praise. Special effect. For the next 1 year, the strength of newborns born in the northern garrison city will increase by 50%. After seeing these 3 buffs, Su Len was very happy. It could be said that these 3 buffs had increased the effect of the 3 wonders of the city by 50%. The founding ceremony ended with cheers and applause. The entire city became a sea of festivities. All kinds of food and performances were prepared in advance. The civilians began to celebrate. In the palace, the grand ceremony had also begun. Su Len prepared a sumptuous feast for the guests. However, he did not have time to chat with these people. After leaving things to Chris, he returned to his room and began to check the rewards of the successful founding of the northern garrison city. After returning to his room, Su Len opened his storage dimension and saw a jade seal carved out of beautiful jade. Imperial Jade Seal. This is the symbol of the northern garrison city's power. It represents the power of the Duke. Destiny plus 20, Destiny Suppressing plus 20, Peace and Peace plus 20, People's Allegiance plus 20, Evil's Avoidance plus 20, Indestructible plus 20. The Way of the Emperor plus 20. Su Luen took out the jade seal, which was the size of a palm. It was made of suet white jade, which was smooth to the touch. A mythical beast was carved on it, and there were beautiful patterns around it. The bottom of the jade seal was engraved with the words, "Receive the mandate of heaven. Live long and prosper forever." Of course, this imperial jade seal and the imperial jade seal from his previous life had nothing to do with each other except for the words carved on it. However, the attributes of this imperial jade seal seemed to be very good. It would benefit the territory a lot. After putting away the imperial jade seal, Su Len continued to check the rest of the items. Su Len had obtained an exclusive troop class. After Su Len opened it, he realized that the troop class could only be obtained through a lottery. Su Len chose to check. Suddenly, a Russian-like roulette wheel appeared in his mind. There were all kinds of troop classes on it, such as the White Horse Cavalry, Shiliang Cavalry, Xiandeng Death Soldiers, Wudong Flying Army, Brave Tiger Guards, Yulin Guards, Tiger Leopard Cavalry, Imperial Guards, Yulin Cavalry, Winged Ho Archers, and about 20 to 30 other troop classes. After seeing the Dragon Cannon Guards and Imperial Guards, Sullen's eyes lit up. These 2 troop classes were very strong. Both of them could attack from a distance, and their attacks had additional effects. The Dragon Cannon Guards could shoot fireballs, which had explosive and burning effects. The Imperial Guards could shoot thunderballs, which had paralyzing and chain lightning effects. The other special troop classes also had their own strengths. Su Len was dazzled. Su Len hesitated, took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and spun the roulette wheel. The roulette wheel spun quickly. Su Len became nervous. Although he could definitely get a special troop class, each special troop class was different. He naturally wanted to get a high-value troop class. Soon, the roulette wheel slowed down. In the end, the needle went past the Wudong Flying Army and Xiandeng Death Soldiers. It looked like it was going to stop at the Dragon Cannon Guards, but the roulette wheel didn't seem to have run out of power. It moved forward a little more and stopped at the Imperial Guards. Seeing that the needle was pointing at the Imperial Guards, Su Len was disappointed. The Imperial Guards weren't a fighting force. They were better at invading, assassinating, and spying. Although he was disappointed that he didn't get the Dragon Cannon Guards, the Imperial Guards weren't bad. Although they had lost a powerful unit, the Imperial Secret Service was still a good intelligence network. Together with the Flying Eagles in Northern Town City, the foundation of an intelligence network was almost complete. Although they had lost a powerful unit, it was still a good idea to build a perfect intelligence network. Sulen happily put away the commander's seal of the Imperial Guards. Then, he looked at the other rewards. After establishing the country, Sulen also received the title of King of the North. It sounded very impressive. Sulen was looking forward to the effects of the title. King of the North, exclusive title. After countless battles, you have defeated the gnolls, trolls, ogres, orcs, frost giants, hydras, and many other races and powerful enemies. You have successfully established a powerful country in the northern wastelands. You have become the King of the North. Your prestige has increased. Your people love and respect you. Your enemies are hostile to you. They are afraid of you. The other races in the wastelands also respect you. There is a certain chance of you receiving contributions. King of the North plus 20, coercion plus 20, submission of the four seas plus 20, people's allegiance plus 20, intimidation plus 20. Effect is permanent. F***CK. This title is awesome. Su Luin rubbed his chin. The effect of this title was effective after he obtained it. He didn't need to wear it anymore. In this way, Su Luin could wear another title, and the attributes of this title were also very good. It was comparable to the bonus of a special building. After checking the effects of the title, Sulen took out the remaining diamond treasure chest. This was the first time Sulen had obtained a diamond treasure chest. He didn't know when he would get one again. Now that he had killed a legendary expert, he only got a platinum treasure chest. What kind of enemy did he have to defeat to get a diamond treasure chest? An advanced legendary? A demigod? Or an abomination? Sulen shook his head and chased the thought away. After calming himself down, Sulen deliberately washed his hands and prepared to open the diamond treasure chest. A series of beautiful special effects flashed, and the system's attribute notification rang in his ears. Congratulations, host. You have opened the diamond treasure chest. You have obtained the item Mystery Lock Theory and Creation. Mystery Lock Theory and Creation? After hearing the system's notification, Sulen was greatly surprised. Although he was mentally prepared, he was still surprised by what he got this time. Mystery locks were first created by the High Elves. After the rise of the Arcane Kingdom, this spell was replaced and improved by the Great Arcanists and became the standard of the Floating City. Hathaway had not mastered this high-end magic technology. The only thing that was passed down in her school was the enchantment circle. Originally, Sulen planned to make do with the enchantment circle in the Wizard Tower for a while. He didn't expect to get such a thing. In this world, there were still several large organizations that had the mystery lock technology. For example, the High Elves' Elven Court, the Silver Moon Council's Silver Moon Guardian, the Lava Tower's Heart of Flame, the Druid Council's Thorn Oak, and so on. Now, Northern Town City had also obtained this technology. Sulen was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He was going to study this technology with Hathaway and strive to master this technology as soon as possible. P.S. It was too late yesterday, so I didn't finish it. I'll make it up today. There are 2 more updates. Happy New Year to everyone. Chapter 388. At first, there were 24 runes that he had learned from the High Elves. After many years of development, the number of runes that had been published in the Arcane Empire had reached 36. It was said that some of the runes had been mastered by the Great Arcanists. There were rumors that the number of runes had reached more than 70. Each rune had its own unique power. During the Arcane Empire, there were even people who developed rune stones. They used a special method to make a rune into a gem, and then combined several rune gems according to a certain formula to make a powerful equipment. However, the process of making rune gems had been lost. Most of the rune equipment circulating now were products of the Arcane Empire, and some were made from rune gems excavated from ruins. Enigma was a spell sequence composed of a large number of runes according to a special arrangement. At first, the Enigma of humans did not cover a large area, generally only 300 to 500 meters. At the same time, the Enigma created by the High Elves could cover a city. During the Arcane Empire, The enigma of humans developed by leaps and bounds and became the standard of wizard towers and floating cities. After putting away the important spell book, Enigma Principles and Creation, Su Lin took out the last remaining blueprint of the Building of Wonders. Building of Wonders Blueprint, Hero's Spirit Tower. After use, you can build a Hero's Spirit Tower of Wonders. Hero's Spirit Tower. Construction requires the Triumphal Arch. This is a tower built with iron and blood. It is the final home of a warrior. With this building, the martial spirit of the territory can be improved. Within 30 miles of the city, newborns have a 10% chance of becoming warriors. At the same time, the morale of all the soldiers in the North Town City plus 20. The souls of the dead soldiers will enter the Triumphal Arch, and the chances of the souls of war becoming heroic spirits plus 20. Martial Spirit plus 35, Indestructible plus 37, Strong Will plus 35, Unyielding Soul of War plus 28. With space of the Heroic Spirit Palace, space can grow. The Hero's Spirit Tower was not bad. It was a perfect match with the Triumphal Arch. With the Hero's Spirit Tower, the chances of the souls of war becoming heroic spirits would increase a lot. However, to build this building, he still needed 2 Battle Soul Stones. Su Lin did not have any Battle Soul Stones now, so he could not build it for the time being. It wasn't easy to get a Battle Soul Stone. Su Lin had issued a mission to the caravans to purchase Battle Soul Stones. Over 100 caravans from all over the continent had gathered in Northern Town City. As long as the price was right, someone would be able to get it. After packing up, the atmosphere of the banquet in the palace was very hot. Su Lin came to the banquet in a good mood and greeted everyone. After staying here for more than 10 minutes, he left the banquet. After the establishment of the principality, life in Su Lin did not change much. After all, it was only a small country with a population of a few 100,000. There was no need to appoint ministers. The caravans that had come to attend the founding ceremony of Beifeng Principality also began to load up the goods produced by Beifeng City and leave. Because of the celebration, Su Lin specifically ordered that the quota for this month would be doubled. Now, the most popular commodity in northern Battlefront City had changed from white sugar to toilet paper. This kind of toilet paper was not only popular among the nobles, but also among the commoners. Of course, the nobles would buy the delicate, soft, and white toilet paper that was sprayed with perfume. The commoners would buy the yellow toilet paper that was of average quality. When Su Lin saw that the toilet paper was selling like hotcakes, he immediately thought of soap and perfume. However, when he was about to start making them, he suddenly realized that he had no idea how to make soap. After all, he was not an engineering student in his previous life. He had no idea how to make soap. Therefore, he could only let the craftsman study it slowly. As for perfume, it was very simple. All he needed to do was dissolve the perfume with alcohol. The difficulty of making perfume was not low. The first step was to find high-purity alcohol. The alcohol content of the drinks in this world was average. For example, ale had about the same alcohol content as beer. It was not easy to find a high alcohol content. At present, the highest alcohol content was the vodka brewed in Northern Town City. The alcohol content was only between 30 and 40%. If he wanted to obtain high-purity alcohol, he would need to distill it. However, since vodka was selling well in Northern Town City, Su Lin did not plan to use vodka to make perfume. Therefore, he only made a few bottles for Hathaway and the others. The celebration lasted for 7 days. From this year onwards, this would be the national day of the year. After the grand celebration, everything returned to normal. The commoners in Northern Town City once again began their busy lives. The merchants seized the time to buy goods and make money. Every day, long caravans would come and go. The army also began their training and cleanup missions again. Su Lin yawned and rubbed his sore head. The book Enigma involved too much knowledge. It was a bit difficult for him to study it. Fortunately, with the talent of erudite, Su Lin's learning ability had been strengthened. It increased his learning efficiency by a lot. He was now studying Enigma while learning other wizardry knowledge. After stretching his body, Su Lin put away the book and left the palace. Although he had become a Grand Duke, Su Lin still liked to wander around the city. This way, he could better understand the situation of the city's lower class. A lot of things happened during this period. Some things happened in the Southern Sea. A pirate ship found the legendary treasure island. It was said that the island was covered with gold, silver, and all kinds of gems. The ship was brought there by a storm. When the pirates left, they recorded the route. As soon as they returned to the coast, the pirates on the ship had a fierce fight. In the end, only a few people managed to escape alive. The map was obtained by the first mate of the pirate ship. The remaining pirates sold the information to other forces. As a result, many forces started to fight for it. Of course, the northern wasteland was thousands of kilometers away from the Southern Sea. It took a few months for the news to reach here. It was said that this matter even alarmed the Red Dragon Queen. Red dragons loved treasure very much. There was also some other news. For example, a marquis of the Lorenza kingdom raised his flag and rebelled. He joined forces with another kingdom to attack the Lorenza kingdom. The Lorenza kingdom suffered heavy losses in the orc invasion last year and was now in a defensive state. Although this was the latest news from northern Battlefront City, the most recent news was from half a month ago. Sulen listened for a while and went to the barracks. He planned to officially recruit the embroidered uniform guards and establish an intelligence network in the northern city with the help of the Eagle. In the barracks, Sulen gathered the soldiers in the barracks. There were not many requirements to recruit the embroidered uniform guards. Their strength had to be grade 1 or lower. As long as the army in the northern city was a regular army, most of them were grade 2. A few of them were grade 3. Sulen picked 500 people in the barracks and spent 1,000 kinner to change their profession to the embroidered uniform guards. Embroidered uniform guards, special forces, specializes in spying, collecting, transmitting, and assassination. Additional skills: camouflage, detection. The 500 soldiers Sulen picked didn't have much of a change in strength after they were converted into the embroidered uniform guards. They only gained some additional knowledge and 2 additional skills. Next, Sulen built a house near the palace as the office for the embroidered uniform guards. The embroidered uniform guards were also officially named the prison guardians. They were given the first batch of 20 eagles. After the embroidered uniform guards learned how to feed the eagles, Sulen began to send them to other countries around the Northwind Principality to establish intelligence bases. The 500 brocade gown guards recruited by Su Luin were divided into groups of 3 or 4. Each group would carry some funds or goods, and then leave northern town as caravans or wandering mercenaries. These brocade gown guards would establish strongholds in some large cities. These bases might be some taverns and hotels on the surface, but they would secretly collect local intelligence. Once there was something important or something he thought was important, he would send the information back. Part of the funds would be earned by themselves, while the other part would be allocated by the Northwind Principality. After all, intelligence was a very expensive business. How could 3 to 5 people in a city collect and transmit information? Of course, they would need to recruit some peripheral personnel. Why would these peripheral personnel collect information for you? Of course, it was because of money. Was it because they wanted to generate electricity? Sulen wanted to maintain a huge intelligence network, so the money spent was naturally very high. Of course, Sulen could also sell information to outsiders, but this would easily expose himself. Sulen hadn't figured out how to do it yet. The number of eagles cultivated in the eagle nest wasn't many. Apart from a portion of the eagles left for the scouts, the rest were all given to the embroidered uniform guards. Originally, Sulen planned to let these eagles breed on their own and then cultivate them. This way, the results would be better if all the eagles were born in the eagle nest. However, the establishment of the embroidered uniform guards required a large number of eagles. If he wanted to obtain a large number of eagles in a short period of time, he could only catch eagles in the wild and train them. Sulen sent out nearly 100 embroidered uniform guards. These embroidered uniform guards would use various methods to integrate into various large cities and towns. Then, they would establish intelligence bases in the cities and towns. Each intelligence base would need about 3 to 5 eagles. This way, the eagle nest would need to cultivate hundreds of messenger eagles. Of course, this was only temporary. If the number of embroidered uniform guards bases continued to increase, then the number of eagles would also increase. Fortunately, Su Len didn't want to eat a fat man in one go. The establishment of an intelligence network couldn't be completed overnight. Chapter 389. Su Len woke up from a deep sleep as the morning sun shone through the curtains. He immediately felt something soft and smooth on his arm. He turned around and looked at the little succubus who was sleeping beside him. Traces of the storm still remained on her delicate face. She looked seductive and a little tired, but she was still sleeping soundly. Although succubi were known to be fearless in bed, they were still defeated by the plasma cannon. Su Luen carefully pulled away the jade-like arm entwined around his arm and Phyllis, who was sleeping soundly on the other side. He got up, picked up a robe and put it on, and then covered himself with the soft silk quilt. It was already July, and the northern wasteland was already very hot. However, Hathaway had set up a large-scale thermostatic magic circle in the palace. Although the technology in this era was backward, many things that could not be done by technology in his previous life could be solved by spells here. Of course, these were only wizards' methods. They were not universal and could not be popularized. Since awakening the dragon bloodline, Phyllis had also undergone a lot of changes. For example, her body had undergone a second growth. The most obvious change was that she had changed from human to all the way from B+ to D+. In addition, she had become more beautiful. Some of the original flaws had disappeared after awakening the dragon bloodline. Phyllis's charm value had increased from 19 to 23. Perhaps she felt Su Len leaving. Phyllis murmured but did not wake up. She subconsciously waved her arm, trying to grab something. In the end, she just happened to grab Su Len. She curled her body into a more comfortable position. As a dragon bloodline sorcerer, although his body was very strong, it depended on who he was compared to. Even if it was 1 against 2 last night, the succubus and Phyllis would still lose. Since Phyllis did not want to let him go, Su Len naturally would not refuse. He smiled and slid his fingers down the smooth silk quilt. Phyllis, who was resting, trembled slightly when she felt the smooth, plump softness in his hand. Su Len, who had just woken up, was full of energy. He once again discussed the mysteries of life with Phyllis. Phyllis had realized that something was wrong. She struggled weakly to escape, but was easily caught by Su Luen. Su Luen patted the peach that was as plump as a full moon. It was clear and melodious. Then, he used his arm to help her position it into a triangular structure with the bed. A triangular structure was the most stable structure, and it was perfect for a cannon. Soon, a melodious sound came from the room. The sun was high in the sky. Su Len finally came out of his room. The air was filled with the smell of heather. Reaching out his hand, he slapped the perky peaches of the 2 blushing personal maids. After that, Su Len walked towards the dining room delightedly. After becoming a Grand Duke, Sullen's life did not change much. He still lived the same life as before. Of course, there was one more activity now, which was to learn about puzzles and magi knowledge. The system would sort out and summarize everything that happened in Beifeng Principality. All he needed to do was take a look at the way the council hall handled matters. If something important happened, the system interface would directly notify him. Sullen's job became much easier after he digitized the information of Beifeng Principality. Wizard Tower. A tall steel golem stood still. Hathaway spent a lot of effort and finally completed the steel golem. The steel golem's strength was at grade 4, and its challenge level was 17. Hathaway got the technology to build the steel golem from the tower spirit in the secret realm. Hathaway snapped her fingers, and a flash of energy disappeared. Then, the steel golem's eyes lit up slightly. Master! The steel golem bowed slightly. From today onwards, you are the guard of the Wizard Tower. The Milky Way will arrange things for you. Go. Hathaway waved her hand and said. The steel golem's heavy body turned around and walked away. In fact, although the steel golem was only at grade 4, There were many powerful golems that were upgraded and modified based on the steel golem. The most famous was a golem construct during the Arcane Empire with the ability to transform and repair. This golem's body could transform and repair itself. As long as there was enough energy, it was very difficult to deal with. This technology was the top technology during the Arcane Empire. As long as it was not completely destroyed, it could gradually restore to its original appearance. It was even more shameless than the army of the undead. It was said that this technology was the top technology developed by the great arcanists and the technology of the Giths. It was usually used on high-end golems. This golem had a very strong self-repair ability and could play a very strong combat power in battle. Many times you would spend a lot of effort to create some scars on it, but in the next second, it would restore to its original appearance. This kind of high-level golem generally appeared in the ruins of the ancient Arcane Empire. Many wizards found this kind of golem and wanted to study the formula of memory metal to use this metal to strengthen the golem puppet. But so far, no one had succeeded. Hathaway could now make the steel golem. Next, she would study the legendary golem. In fact, the legendary golem was the wizard's trump card. Your Excellency Hathaway, His Excellency Sulen wants to see you. The Milky Way's voice sounded. I know, I'll go now. Hathaway moved her body and closed the laboratory. Hathaway went all the way to the top of the wizard tower, the astrology platform. At this time, Sulen was lying on a recliner and reading a spell book. Why are you looking for me in such a hurry? Hathaway snapped her fingers, and another recliner flew directly to her side. Hathaway leaned back and lay down. I got a book, and I need you to take a look at it. Sulen dropped the spell book in his hand. The spell book flew by itself under a strange force and returned to its original position on the bookshelf in the room. Hearing that Sulen got another spell book, Hathaway immediately became spirited. Last time, Sulen got a spell book about magic tattoo techniques. Hathaway had only heard of this kind of high-level spell knowledge. The two books about magic tattoo techniques could be said to have benefited her a lot. Now that Sulen got another spell book, Hathaway was naturally full of expectations. What spell book? What kind of spell book? Sulen smiled slightly, and then took out the book, The Theory and Making of Riddles, from his storage space. Here, it's this one. The Theory and Making of Riddles was a silver-white book. It looked very precious. Hathaway quickly reached out and took it. After seeing the Nesser title on the book's surface, her body instantly jumped up like a spring. This is the method of making riddles? Hathaway exclaimed. She stared at Sulen without blinking. Sulen yawned, stretched, and said, Isn't it written on the cover? Why are you asking me? You don't know Nesser? Of course I know it. I taught you Nesser. I'm asking if this book really has information about riddles, Hathaway asked. Would you believe me if I said it now? You'll know when you see it for yourself. Sulen rolled his eyes at her. Hathaway flipped through the book suspiciously. Riddles contained a lot of information, and it was not a normal book. It was a magic book. Riddles was made of a strange material. Although it looked like paper, after careful inspection, one would find that it was two completely different things. Riddles did not contain everything about riddles. In fact, it contained a lot of knowledge that extended to many different fields. Since this book dared to name itself The Theory and Making of Riddles, the knowledge contained in it was all-encompassing. Sulen even suspected that the author of this book was not an ordinary arcanist. When Sulen read the book, he found that if one's mind power and intelligence did not meet the requirements, they would not be able to understand the content. There was a strange magic in this book. It seemed to be able to categorize the mind power and intelligence of the reader. Not everyone was qualified to read this book. Take Boulder and Johnson, for example. Their brains were full of muscles, so they couldn't open this book at all. This thing could be used as an intelligence detector. Of course, even if one was qualified to read this book, it did not mean that one would be able to understand it after reading it. This book was a magical item. To read it, one would need to concentrate his mind power, which would consume a lot of his mind power. Chapter 390. Hathaway's reading speed was not fast. Seeing that she was reading seriously, Su Len did not disturb her. Instead, he picked up another book from the shelf and began to read. After about 2 hours, Hathaway let out a long sigh of relief and closed the book. After exiting from that state, Hathaway only felt a sense of exhaustion. Her temples were slightly swollen and painful. Just now, she had finished reading, and her power of will and magic were severely depleted. "How do you feel?" Su Len walked over and gently pressed her temples with his fingers. Hathaway moaned comfortably and closed her eyes in enjoyment. Phew! After a while, Hathaway let out a long sigh of relief. "I feel much better now. When I put down the book just now, I felt like my head was going to explode." Su Len smiled. "You read for too long. I only read for half an hour each time, and then I rest for a while before continuing. You read for more than 2 hours in one go. Of course your head is going to explode." "Don't force yourself in the future," Hathaway said with a frown. "What did you learn?" Su Len asked. Hathaway frowned. "I learned a lot, but I think I still need to wait a while before I can understand the riddle. The content of this book is too profound. Explain it to me when you've mastered it. I still have a lot of things I don't understand," Su Len said as he massaged her. "Okay, I'll find you a few books later. The knowledge in those books is all prerequisite knowledge. You need to master it." Hathaway's body curled up in Sullen's arms and changed into a more comfortable position. "Although your basic knowledge is lacking, your talent for learning is really good. As long as you fill in the basic knowledge, it won't be hard for you to catch up with me." In reality, apart from the limitation of aptitude, the requirement of intelligence was also very high. Many powerful wizards had the ability of encyclopedic knowledge. Wizards with this kind of talent would be heavily nurtured as long as they were discovered during their apprenticeship period. Every time, they would be the target of many wizards when they were recruiting disciples. Above the talent of encyclopedic knowledge, there was an even more powerful talent called eidetic memory. With this talent, as long as one didn't die prematurely, becoming a legendary wizard was basically something that was set in stone. With this talent, they could master a lot of knowledge, and the Wizard Academy would fully support them. Hathaway had the encyclopedic knowledge talent, which allowed her to easily master a lot of knowledge. Retentive memory was a rare talent. A Wizard Academy might not even have one in 100 or 200 years. Okay. Su Len looked at the list of books that Hathaway had made. Those books were almost as tall as him. With so many books to learn, it was no wonder that wizards were all otakus. After a simple lunch with Hathaway, Su Len went to the training ground. He had not slacked off on his combat skills for a long time. When he arrived at the training ground, Su Len saw that Phyllis was already training in a hunting suit. Although Phyllis was a princess, she was not delicate at all during training. She had a serious look on her face as she practiced with the half-elf ranger. To be honest, the skills of human warriors were not suitable for Phyllis, so Su Len let the drow warrior and the half-elf ranger teach her combat skills together. Su Len did not go to the training ground. Instead, he stood not far away and watched for a while. Phyllis swung her long sword very vigorously. She was much stronger than before, and her footsteps were also very nimble. What she lacked now was combat experience. "Looks like the effect of the dragon blood baptism is not bad." Su Len looked at Phyllis up and down with satisfaction. Her slender waist and plump butt were not bad. "The recovery ability of the dragon pulse is good." Su Len nodded with satisfaction. After the awakening of the dragon pulse, a person's physique, strength, reflexes, and so on would be strengthened. It was an all-round improvement. Dragon warlocks were different from normal spellcasters. They usually learned a lot of melee combat skills. It could be said that a dragon warlock was not inferior to a warrior in melee combat. Compared to wizards, a dragon warlock had a lot less spells. When faced with a large number of enemies, they would have to pick up a sword and kill directly after using up their spells. Generally speaking, a wizard who could not fight in melee like Gandalf was not a good wizard. Of course, there were not many wizards who could fight like Gandalf, but Gandalf's fighting style was very suitable for a dragon warlock. Sulen stood aside and watched Phyllis train with the half-elven ranger. Since the awakening of the dragon pulse, Phyllis's physique had improved significantly. The half-elven ranger in charge of teaching was also shocked. As Phyllis's teacher, he was very surprised by Phyllis's performance. In less than half a month, Phyllis had gone from a weak girl who had just learned how to hold a weapon to an elite warrior. Was her talent really that good? Okay. Take a break, Sulen said to the group. Yes, Lord Duke. The training stopped. Phyllis, just training is not enough. If you want to become stronger, you need to undergo some training on the battlefield. After a while, I will let someone take you to participate in the cleaning of the territory. You should be able to easily deal with those goblins, kobolds, and gnolls. Sulen looked at the heroic Phyllis and said. Phyllis drew a beautiful sword with one hand and said confidently, I will do my best. After the establishment of the Northwind Principality, the construction of the Northgard city did not stop. All kinds of projects were carried out step by step. A few people in black cloaks walked through the crowd. Their attire was not eye-catching in the Northgard city, and many mercenaries and adventurers liked to dress up like this. As the largest city in the Northern Wastelands, there were many adventurers who went to the Northern Wastelands in search of ancient ruins or rare materials. A small market similar to the black market of Kalan City had gradually formed in Northgard City. It was often used to trade things brought out from ruins or materials found in the Northern Wastelands. Sulen did not ban this spontaneous market. Instead, he sent a few tax officers to collect taxes. He didn't care what people were trading, but they had to pay taxes. At first, there were some who did not pay because they were strong, but soon, they were taught a lesson by the powerful military of Northgard City. These people in black cloaks came to the market. They were very interested in all kinds of things that came out from ruins. Have you heard? The Grand Duke is going to build a wizard academy here. A young man in a black cloak picked up a piece of metal from the stall and said. Another person in a black cloak nodded and said, I heard. Are you going to join? I haven't decided yet, but if the pay is good, I will consider joining, the young man said. The young man said. Then he waved the injured metal shard and asked the stall owner, How much is this metal shard? 10 kinner. The stall owner was an adventurer in his 30s. He was wearing a shabby leather armor and had a scar on his face. He looked a little down, but the light in his eyes showed that he was not as simple as he seemed. The young man paused for a moment and put the piece of metal back. You can keep it for yourself. After that, he stood up and walked to another stall. The other person in a black cloak also left. With our current strength, we will need a lot of resources to advance. It is almost impossible to rely on ourselves. If we want to advance, we have to join an organization. Of course I know that. But there is a problem. How can you be sure that we will not be used as cannon fodder if we join an organization? The other person in a black cloak asked. We have also studied the Northwind Principality and the personality of the Grand Duke. The probability is very small. The younger man in a black cloak said, We've come all the way from the Southern Sea to here, and we've met quite a few wizard organizations along the way. However, those organizations don't trust foreign wizards. Even if you join them, you won't be treated well. Most of the time, you're just cannon fodder. They trust the wizard apprentices they've cultivated more than people like us. Of course, I know that. But you should know that those wizard organizations are all old forces. The most recent one has a history of almost 1,000 years. They have enough apprentices and all kinds of people. But Northwind City is different. I have already asked around. There are less than 10 wizards in Northwind City. They have no one to use. We do not have to worry about being used as cannon fodder. All right, since you've already made up your mind, let's give it a try. If any of the Grand Dukes can offer decent conditions, I'll join the academy as well. The other magus thought for a moment and nodded in agreement. After hearing his companion's agreement, the black-cloaked wizard was very happy. Then it is settled. After we are done here, we will go to the wizard tower to sign up. Okay. The other wizard nodded and said, Northwind City is not bad. The concentration of elements here is much higher than normal places. The northern wasteland has a lot of materials, and the price is much cheaper than the south. I heard that the legendary wizard has a botanical garden in his wizard tower. I don't know if it is true or not. I think it is true. Have you sensed the garden in the sky in the city? The concentration of elements there is even more shocking. Also, there are a lot of magic plants there. It is said that as long as you can join the Magic Academy, you will be able to get a small piece of land. You should know that it is a piece of land that can grow magic plants. I really admire that Grand Duke. The cost of building such a garden is shocking, and he is using it as a reward. Let's not go to the market today. Let's go sign up now. If we wait any longer, the Sky Garden might have already been divided up. Another wizard heard the news. He stopped walking around the market and left with his companions. Chapter 391. Sulen, Chris, Hathaway, Alex, Phyllis, Karina, Grace, and the others were all sitting together in the astrology platform of the Wizard Tower. Wizard Lorraine and Wizard Andre were also listening on the side. What did you say? Hathaway was stunned after hearing Sullen's words. It was obvious that Sullen's words had a huge impact on her. You're planning to officially open a Wizard Academy? And it's not going to be a teacher-student education system? Instead, it's going to be a classroom education system? As Hathaway's voice faded, the other people on the scene were also a little surprised. In this era, the education system was very low. Not to mention wizard academies, even normal academies were educated like aristocrats and elites. If a wizard only taught a few students, the commoners wouldn't be able to read for the rest of their lives. Wizard academies were even more serious. They would usually select some apprentices to join the academy, and after some screening, they would accept the ones with the best qualifications. The rest of them would serve the academy as wizard apprentices. The probability of those wizard apprentices becoming high-ranking wizards was very low. Most of them would become low-ranking wizards to create value for the academy. Yes, Sulen nodded. He had already prepared for the establishment of a wizard academy a long time ago, but the conditions were not right yet. He looked at the others and said in a deep voice, I'm going to open a wizard academy. You should have noticed it by now. The elemental tide has begun again. The elemental tide has really begun. Hearing Sullen's words, the other spellcasters were stunned. As spellcasters, they naturally knew the meaning of the elemental tide. In the world of wizards, everything in the world was made up of energy. The whole world was filled with energy, but only a small part of this energy could be used by them. This was the elemental energy. Energy was not static because all the energy came from the original sea. Therefore, the elemental energy was constantly moving. Some of the original sea's movements were similar to the sea. Just like how the sea had its ebb and flow, the original sea also had its own way of moving. This was the elemental tide. When the elemental tide began, the concentration of elemental energy in the entire multiverse would slowly increase. This process of increase would continue for hundreds of years, and even many planes that were originally lacking in elemental energy would become rich in elemental energy. Of course, this was a good thing for wizards. This meant that it would be easier for them to increase their strength, and the world's upper limit would also increase. The material plane was like a fish pond. Before the elemental tide came, the water in the pond was not deep, and the shallow water could only support small fish and shrimps. After the elemental tide came, the water level in the pond would rise rapidly, creating an environment for the big fish to live in. Therefore, every time the elemental tide came, all kinds of legendary champions would emerge one after another like bamboo shoots after the rain. In history, there was no lack of talented geniuses, but they were born at the end of the elemental tide. Their elemental energy continued to decline until it finally fell to the freezing point. Then, they wasted their entire lives and were unable to enter the legendary realm. Now that they knew that the elemental tide was coming again, these spellcasters were naturally excited. What? You don't believe me? Then you can ask Hathaway. She's a legendary wizard. She should know more about the elemental tide than I do. Seeing the look in their eyes, Su Len said with a smile. Hathaway looked at them and nodded. During this period of time, the concentration of elemental energy has been slowly rising. The probability of the elemental tide coming is very high. After hearing Hathaway's words, a trace of joy flashed in the eyes of these spellcasters. It was obvious that they would be able to enjoy the benefits of the elemental tide. After getting the confirmation, everyone kept talking. Dong, dong, dong. Seeing that these people were getting further and further away from the topic, Su Len could only knock on the table and remind them. Today, we are discussing about the Wizard Academy. You can discuss the elemental tide in private. Yes, sir. Everyone stopped talking. After the hall became quiet again, Su Len continued. There's another benefit of the elemental tide. The number of people with the potential to become a wizard will increase. There are now hundreds of thousands of people in the North Town City. There are many newborns with the potential to become a wizard. We must make use of them. Quite a few wizards have come to North Town City these days. Although most of them are low-ranking wizards, they don't know many spells, and they aren't very powerful. The knowledge they have accumulated is very valuable. If the North Wind Duchy wants to develop, we need a lot of talents. Also, we have built the largest wizard tower in the Northern Wasteland, but we don't have enough wizard apprentices to do the daily work. The maintenance of the wizard tower can't all rely on the puppet golems. Although they are very useful, there are still some details that they can't handle. A functioning adept tower requires a large number of apprentice adepts and low-grade adepts. We don't use the aristocratic elite education method because although it's good, the efficiency is too low. A wizard usually teaches 6 to 7 wizard apprentices. It's too slow compared to the big classroom education method. Also, this kind of big classroom education method doesn't have high requirements for the teachers. Although the old way didn't teach many wizard apprentices, it took up a lot of time. After all, not all wizard apprentices have the same learning speed. Now that we're following the big classroom style of education, this kind of situation is rare. We can divide these apprentices into several stages. Every wizard only needs to take out a class every day to teach them in turn, and those apprentice wizards will be able to obtain a large amount of knowledge. Under this kind of education method, the wizard apprentices will have enough time to do all kinds of research and learning. It's like killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Su Len explained the benefits of this kind of education method. As soon as he finished speaking, Karina continued, Lord Duke, the method you're talking about does have a lot of benefits, but it also has a lot of problems. The most important thing is that the success rate of wizard apprentices who use this method to become a high-ranking wizard will decrease. The value of a high-ranking wizard is more than 100 low-ranking wizards and wizard apprentices. This kind of education method will cause a gap in the high-end fighting power of our northern town city. Su Len smiled and said, Karina, I understand your concern, but it's not impossible to solve. Just like you said, if the success rate of becoming a high-ranking wizard is decreased, then we can increase the number of wizard apprentices. We can increase the number of wizard apprentices who can successfully become a high-ranking wizard apprentice. But there aren't many wizard apprentices in the first place. Even if there's an elemental tide, there won't be many wizard apprentices. It won't reach the level you're talking about. Su Len laughed in his heart. Of course, the elemental tide alone wouldn't be enough, but with the bonus of the arcane garden and the arcane praise from the Duchy of North Wind, the number of wizard apprentices in the northern town city would increase by a few times. With such a base number of wizard apprentices, even if they used the big classroom education method, they wouldn't have to worry about not having enough wizard apprentices to become high-ranking wizards. That's not necessarily true. Su Len smiled mysteriously at him and continued, If you're worried about the education in the big classroom, we can also give some of them individual tutoring. We can gather some of the wizard apprentices who have good potential and give them special treatment. We can train them as elites. This way, the number of wizard apprentices who can become high-ranking wizards will definitely increase. After hearing Sullen's solution, everyone thought it was a good idea. Also, we will build a golem workshop in the future, as well as some other workshops. This will require a lot of labor, including polishing the parts of the golem, assembling the structure of the golem, arranging the rune paths, and so on. These parts can be done by wizard apprentices. If we can form a production line, then the wizard apprentices will only need to activate the golem workshop. In that case, the wizards only need to be responsible for the most important activation and charging parts. This way, we can increase efficiency. Su Len said with a smile. This kind of education method could provide a lot of manpower for the northern town city. The northern town city didn't lack people who worked at the bottom. What the wizard tower needed was skilled labor. To Su Len, the wizard apprentices were like tools. They didn't need to be strong or have ideas. They just needed to work according to Sulen's requirements. That's right, Su Len was now getting closer to capitalists. In order to build the academy, we're going to recruit more wizards as teachers. We've also discussed the conditions. As long as they pass the exam, they can join our wizard academy. After gathering the opinions of others, the Northwind Principality officially started the Northwind Academy. At the same time, many wandering wizards came here in advance. After hearing about the benefits of the Northwind Academy, many wizards went to sign up. After everything was arranged, Su Len began to busy himself with other things. Su Len sent 2 construction teams to build the Wizard Academy. The others were also busy. Hathaway was mainly learning the knowledge of Enigma. Once she mastered the knowledge of Enigma, she would build Enigma around the Wizard Tower. Alex was in charge of the Mystery Realm, and Chris was in charge of the underground world. Karina and Grace helped Su Len manage the city. Everything in the northern town city was developing in an orderly manner. In addition, Su Len also planned to upgrade the academy in the northern town city. In the past, the academy in the northern town city was called an academy, but in reality it was used to train low-level officials. Now, Su Len wanted to train more people. The northern town city was limited by the lack of talents when it was first developed. If the Northwind Principality wanted to develop quickly, it naturally needed to train more talents. Chapter 392. The academy in Northern Town was not big at first. In the beginning, there were only 2 or 3 scholars as teachers. After several expansions, the number of teachers was less than 20. Now that the number of officials in Northern Town was almost enough, he planned to turn the academy into a school. When he built Northern Town, Su Len promised the soldiers that he would build a school in the future so that the children of the soldiers could learn to read and learn. Now that Beifeng Principality had been built, he planned to fulfill his promise. In the arena, it was the only place in Northern Town where legal duels could be held. It was as lively as ever. There were a lot of mercenaries and adventurers in the city. Usually, these people who lived on the edge of blades had bad tempers. They would start a fight if they had a disagreement. Because of the strict laws in Northern Town, these people did not dare to fight in public. Therefore, they would come here to arrange a duel. Because of this, there were often single elimination matches in the arena. The officials of Northern Battlefront City were quite supportive of this. This was because these single elimination matches would attract a lot of spectators. The officials would directly sell tickets in the arena. Some of the more famous ones would even set up bets for the matches. Now, the arena had become a stable industry. When there were no duels, the officials would arrange for some gladiators to fight. Martial arts were popular in Northern Town, so the arena was very popular here. The arena in Northern Town could hold 3,000 to 5,000 people at most. The ticket price was from 3 to 5 silver nars. The VIP seats were as high as 1 kinner. There were not many entertainment activities in this era. Apart from taverns, seafood merchants, bards, and circuses, there were only gladiator fights. Traveling poets and circuses rarely came to Northern Town. The cheapest drink in the taverns cost at least 3 copper coins, and the amount was not much either. It would be gone in a few mouthfuls. It was not affordable for ordinary people, so the gladiator arena was more exciting. Today, the gladiator arena was packed with people. 2 people were fighting in the gladiator arena. There were several types of fights in the gladiator arena. The most common type was the performance type. This type of gladiator arena was very exciting and had many rules. Although there were casualties, it was very low. The other kind was the arranged duel. This kind of duel often had casualties, so many people liked to watch it. However, it was not every day. Today, it was an exhibition fight in the arena. However, unlike the hot-blooded shouts of the past, many people were whispering to each other today. Is this true? Of course it's true. The City Hall has already announced it on the bulletin board. The Academy is officially open to the citizens of the Northern Battlefront City. As long as you are a citizen of the Northern Battlefront City, you are eligible to enroll. Really? Do you have any other requests? There are no requirements. Also, if your family has a family member in the military, you can waive your tuition fees. The school will provide you with 1 meal a day, and the school will last for 5 years. This is the Grand Duke's promise to us. Since the establishment of the Duchy of Northwind, Sulen had been addressed as Grand Duke. More and more people began to praise Sulen's great achievements. After all, the entire North Town was built because of Sulen, and they could live such a good life because of Sulen. The people at the grassroots level were actually very easy to satisfy. Hee, if you're not a citizen of Northern Battlefront City, you won't be able to enjoy such treatment. A bearded man beside him said excitedly, "The City Hall has already explained the situation in detail. The teachers in charge of teaching are the ones who taught the officials before." What does this mean? The people around him looked at him curiously. However, the bearded man was no longer in a hurry. The other man next to him rolled his eyes and immediately picked up his own wine pot and handed it over, saying, brother, you drink? How can I?" The bearded man gave him a thoughtful look. He reached out and took the wine jug, then raised his head and took a big gulp. "Ah, this feels good." The bearded man breathed a sigh of relief and said with an intoxicated look, "You've drunk the wine. Hurry up and tell us." Someone beside him urged, "What's the rush?" The bearded man closed the wine jug and moved his body for the man, then said, "Think about it. Those teachers used to teach the officials. Now they're teaching the students. Are they teaching the ordinary students? You're saying?" A hint of surprise flashed across the faces of the surrounding people who were still somewhat at a loss. "Right." The bearded man chuckled. "They're recruiting probationary officials." Hiss. Hearing that the riddle had been solved, everyone sucked in a cold breath. Probationary officials, they were officials. Although the treatment of officials in Northern Town City was not as good as that of soldiers, soldiers had their risks. Look, Northern Town City is big enough. It only took 2 years. Our Grand Duke will definitely continue to expand his territory. In a few years, he will definitely build more cities. How will the officials in the city come? Won't they be trained in this school? The bearded man said with a smile. In this era, it was very difficult to cross the social class. Naturally, people were very willing to cross the social class in this way. Sulen did not expect that the establishment of his school would be interpreted in this way by these people. However, even if he knew, he would not refute the rumors. Sometimes, the more you refute a rumor, the more people would believe it. Of course, he could not say that it was a rumor. After all, if the Duchy of Northern Wind continued to expand, these people would definitely be transferred to serve as low-level officials. You think that's all? At this time, a nearby soldier who looked like a city guard said with a smile, "Not only that, I heard that Northern Town City will start to check all the children in the city this year. The purpose is to select children with the potential to become wizards. If your children can pass the test, I'm telling you, you'll definitely earn a lot. They have the chance to become wizards. TSK. This is a great opportunity to reach the sky in one step. I heard that there are no restrictions on the selection. As long as you live in Northern Town City, you can join." Hearing this, the others were stunned for a moment. Then, they said with joy, "Is that true? Of course it is. I'm going to go back and register my son. I'm going back too." For a moment, these people did not have the time to watch the performance. They turned around and left the arena. If a wizard appeared in a family, it was like reaching the sky in one step. Wizards were born to be nobles. Once they had the potential to become wizards, they would instantly become the upper class of society. For those who lived in the lower class of society, the temptation was too great. Northern Town City was full of discussions. All kinds of news spread quickly. All the topics were about the Northern Town City Academy that was about to open. As the ruler of Northern Wind Duchy, Sullen's every move had already affected the thoughts of everyone in Northern Town City. And what Su Luan had done in the past had proved himself. The people in Northern Town City followed Su Len blindly. When they heard that Su Len was going to establish the academy himself, they immediately thought that it was a very promising thing. So now, many people in Northern Town City were rubbing their hands and preparing to send their children to the academy. Even if they did not have a son, they wanted to send their talented and smart relatives to the academy. Unknowingly, the most promising group of people in Northern Town City gathered together with Sullen's simple policy. The number of talents that could be born in the future would determine how stable Northern Wind Duchy's foundation would be. The sun was scorching. The scorching sun was scorching the earth. Northern Wind Duchy kept going west. After passing through the lonely forest, the land gradually became barren. This was the trade route from Northern Wind Duchy to the western countries. To the southwest was the desert kingdom of Am. After passing through the desert kingdom was Gondor. To the north of Gondor was the Dwarven Kingdom, which was a stretch of mountains. It was said that there were 3 Dwarven kingdoms in this mountain range: the Iron Hill Dwarven Kingdom, the Iron Furnace Dwarven Kingdom, and the Riptide Dwarven Kingdom. The Lonely Forest was a very special place. There were some dead magic areas. To put it simply, the elemental energy in this area was very chaotic, or there was no elemental energy at all. It was difficult for spellcasters to cast spells here. There was a high chance of failure, and even if the spell was cast successfully, it would consume a lot of energy. There were many fierce beasts and some magic creatures living in this place. There were also some relics left from the Arcane Empire in this forest. It was said that this forest used to be a battlefield in the Arcane Empire. The scars caused by the battle had not been repaired until now, and there was even serious pollution left behind. Countless adventurers who wanted to get the treasures of the Arcane Empire tried to enter here, but few came back alive. Of course, there were also rumors that a god had actually fallen in the depths of the lonely forest. Of course, no one knew whether this was true or not. Some people claimed that there was a secret realm in the depths of the forest, which hid the treasures of the great arcanists. The sun was scorching, the temperature was very high, and the surrounding environment was very barren. After passing through the lonely forest, it gradually became desolate. It was a dry Gobi desert where some gnolls and orcs lived. The cruel environment made the monsters here fierce and powerful, and there were even legendary monsters among them. The gnolls here also believed in the king of gnolls on the 422nd floor of the Abyss, Yeenagu. In the Abyss, Yeenagu was not a very powerful Abyss lord, but no one could underestimate him. The king of gnolls was not alone. He also conquered another Abyss lord, the king of ghouls, by force. He had been active for thousands of years under the pressure of the Succubus Queen and the Tauren King. Although the Succubus Queen and the Tauren King had other enemies, it also showed that Yeenagu still had some skills. And there was a rumor that Yeenagu had a powerful artifact in his hand, the time chain. Of course, this artifact was not complete. It only had 3 chain hammers. Some people said that the time chain in Yeenagu's hand was just a replica. Chapter 393. It was still uncertain whether the 3-headed flail in Yeenagu's hand was a divine artifact or not. But he had been searching for the parts of the flail of time to restore this powerful divine artifact. However, many people did not want this divine artifact to be restored. Whoosh! An arrow flew across the sky and instantly pierced a gnoll with khaki fur. The powerful force directly penetrated its body and sank deep into the hard Gobi desert. Su Luan shot and killed a Jackalan scout that was following him. He pulled his cloak over his body to block the sandstorm outside. Su Len did not bring anyone else out this time. It was more convenient for him to ride the Pegasus alone. The strong wind blew by, and the Pegasus shook its head and snorted. Obviously, it did not like this environment. Su Len took out a shabby parchment map from the storage space. He opened it and looked at it. The map was very simple. There was no standard way to make a map in this era. Most of the time, he could only guess while looking at it. This map was sent by a caravan. Because Su Len issued a message to buy the Battle Soul Stone, a month had passed and the caravan had not received the Battle Soul Stone. They only received this map and some news. The map recorded a ruin in the desert. It was said that in this ruin, there might be a Battle Soul Stone. It was said that this ruin was destroyed in a war. Both sides could be said to have perished together. The probability of a Battle Soul Stone being born in such a large battlefield was very high. After Su Len learned about this situation, he planned to explore the ruin himself. The deeper he went into the Gobi Desert, the fewer traces of surrounding plants there were. Some desert plants such as camel thorns struggled to grow in this cruel environment. However, as he went deeper, even camel thorns, which were tenacious plants, became fewer and fewer. In the end, the Gobi Desert became a desert. A gust of wind came out, and the yellow sand danced in the sky. There was almost no green in front of him. This was the result of the war between the Arcane Kingdom and the gods in ancient times. This was part of the main battlefield. Many once glorious cities were now buried under yellow sand. At that time, the various magic energies released by the two sides changed the world. The originally rich land became a barren desert. The rivers dried up and the land was desertified. That desert was not the largest desert in the world. Continuing to the west, in the south of the continent, there was a vast desert that stretched for thousands of miles. It was called the Death Sand Sea. That was the largest desert. That desert was the most intense battlefield between the Arcane Kingdom and the gods. It was almost impossible to survive in the Death Sand Sea. Although thousands of years had passed, the damage caused by the war still affected the place. The elemental energy was chaotic, and there were even some spatial cracks. Some places caused by the war between the two sides. The death. Fortunately, Su Luan's target this time was not the Death Sand Sea, which was a place where even legendary masters could die if they were not careful. Although the desert Su Luan came to this time was not small, the degree of danger was not so high. Although the desert kingdom of Amh claimed that the whole desert was their territory, in fact, the area under their control was only the western and southern parts of the desert, where the desertification was not serious. There were also some large oases in the desert. As for the rest, it was occupied by various small forces. The Druids had a high status in the desert. Since the land became a desert, many Druids who believed in nature came here. They used their own power to transform the desert. They had not stopped for hundreds of years. Many oases in the desert were transformed by these Druids. Because the energy left over from the war had not dissipated, it also made the transformation of the desert difficult. These Druids were believers of the goddess of nature. It took a lot of effort to transform a desert area into an oasis. For others, crossing the desert alone was a very dangerous act. But for Su Len, it was not difficult. The most dangerous thing in the desert was to get lost and not find an oasis to resupply. Sullen's storage space was filled with all kinds of supplies, enough for him to eat for a few months. With some spells, Su Len could easily identify the direction in the desert. Su Len did not let the Pegasus fly. It was difficult to identify the position in the desert. If he wanted to find the ruins in the desert, he could only explore it bit by bit. Although the flight was fast, some things buried under the desert could not be found at all. After the Pegasus retracted its wings, its appearance was no different from an ordinary horse. However, it was enhanced and its eyes were smart. There was no need to worry about being discovered. It was a kind of self-protection. After entering the desert, Su Len walked in the desert for 2 days. Along the way, besides the yellow sand, there were some white bones. Some of the white bones looked very strange. Su Len found several camels kneeling on the ground. There were no wounds on their bodies and they did not struggle. Under the continuous sand dunes, some broken buildings were buried. These buildings were seriously damaged. Many of them could not be seen clearly. The surroundings were buried by yellow sand. It was very difficult to dig them out. Excavating the ruins in the desert needed to be careful of quicksand. As long as the sand collapsed while excavating, one could be buried alive if one was not careful. Moreover, there might not be enough rewards in these ruins. There were often all kinds of dangers in the ruins of the Arcane Kingdom. Su Len simply rummaged through the ruins. This was not what he was looking for. Su Len also found a lot of traces of fire around the ruins. Obviously, this ruin had been visited by many people. Even if it was excavated, it might not be able to get anything. After a simple check, Su Len rode the Pegasus and continued to move forward. When the sun set, a touch of green finally appeared in the distance. It was an oasis. After seeing the oasis, Su Len was shocked. He patted the Pegasus's neck gently. The Pegasus neighed, its 4 hooves flew, and it quickly galloped toward the green. How fast was the Pegasus? Although it did not gallop at full speed, the green in the distance was also expanding rapidly. Soon Su Len saw it clearly. It was a forest of haloxylon trees. Farther away, there were many poplar trees. The poplar trees were arranged neatly. Obviously, they were not naturally formed, but planted. Seeing this, Su Len knew that he had found an oasis. Although he could live in the desert, no one wanted to face the yellow sand for a long time. If there was an oasis, naturally, he would not miss it. As the Pegasus approached quickly, a broken city wall made of sand and stone appeared in front of him. The city wall was not high, about 6 or 7 meters. The city wall was severely weathered. Some people were coming in and out of the city gate. Some caravans led camels into the city. Although the oasis was not very big and the city wall was dilapidated, it was very prosperous inside. There were many caravans coming and going. Su Len saw many merchants hawking on the street. The buildings in the city were also made of sand and stone. They looked rough. Su Len dismounted and led the Pegasus slowly to the city. The inspection of the city was not strict. Several soldiers stood at the door. A fat tax officer was checking and recording with a pen. A caravan leader nodded and bowed to the tax officer. Su Len saw that when the two of them bowed, the merchant nimbly put a heavy bag of money into the tax officer's arms. After the tax officer felt the heavy bag in his arms, he waved his hand in satisfaction and let the caravan enter. Su Len slowly followed behind the caravan. Soon, after a simple inspection, they finally entered the city. There were people from all over the continent in this city. They were communicating with each other in different accents. Fortunately, Su Len had the ability to understand languages. This was the power given to him by his divinity. With the ability to understand languages, Su Len could communicate with any intelligent creature. In fact, other than understanding languages, there was also a spell called all-night writing. However, this spell was not commonly used. Only wizards could learn it. This spell was often used in ruins exploration. There were too many types of ancient writing. Even wizards could not remember all of them. The most eye-catching things in the city were the domes. The domes looked like big peaches. This was the unique architectural style of the desert area. In the center of the domes, there was a tall metal pointer. In the center of the city was the desert temple. At the top of the temple, there was a golden sun. In the sun, there was a pattern similar to an eye. That was the church of the sun god. The clergy of the sun god had always been an important field of competition among the gods. Almost every divine system would have a god involved in the sun. Every god named sun god was very powerful. In this world alone, there were 3 gods involved in the sun: the Lord of Dawn, the Lord of Light, and the God of Sky and Sunday. The temple in front of them was the church of the god of space and sun in the desert divine system. This was a powerful god. He was involved in the fields of the sun, protection, and revenge. This was a god of the neutral camp. He had the most followers in the desert divine system. The desert divine system was an outsider during the time of the ancient arcane kingdom. It was said that their original world was destroyed for some reason and they had to leave. Many of these people were slaves captured by the arcane kingdom. The relationship between the desert divine system and other divine systems was not harmonious. There was a fierce war between the two sides. However, the desert divine system only lived in the desert and did not expand. The two sides finally reached a tacit understanding. There were often various battles between the other gods on the continent. The desert divine system had always been watching coldly. Sulen found a clean hotel in the city to stay. Then he arranged the Pegasus and went to the nearby tavern to inquire about the news. It was very difficult to find a place in the desert. After all, there was no obvious reference in the desert. Sometimes after a sandstorm, the environment would change greatly. It was not easy to determine the location of the ruins. There were often caravans passing through the desert. These people walked in the desert all year round and knew a lot of information. Chapter 394. It wasn't a simple task to excavate relics in the desert. In a desert environment like this, if there weren't any professionals, one would be buried if the sand was dug too deep. Other than a guide, Sulen also needed to hire a group of workers to help him excavate the ruins. This oasis city was called Halta, which meant outpost. It was the first oasis to enter and exit the desert. Caravans and adventurers from all over the world could be seen here. Every year, monks would come here to travel or do ascetic practices. In order to temper their will, many martial monks would deliberately go to some areas with extremely harsh environments to practice on foot. Su Luan saw several bald heads in the city. Most of these monks were wearing old clothes, and their hands were covered with calluses. Although they did not wear heavy armor or weapons, none of them were below grade 3. Most of these monks had made the poverty oath. Many of them wanted to become ascetics, but only a few succeeded in the end. Su Luan walked through the bustling street and wandered alone in the streets and alleys here. His eyes swept around from time to time. Soon he found his target here. It was a tavern. Outside the tavern, a shabby sign was waving in the wind. Shadow Howl. The tavern was not in a very good location, and the outside was also shabby. A few rats scurried through the garbage next to it. Sulen frowned and walked into the alley. He came to the tavern's door and pushed it open. When the door of the tavern was pushed open, a burst of noise immediately came out. Unlike the outside, the inside of the tavern was very lively. What surprised Su Luan the most was that there were more than a dozen maids in revealing clothes here. The tavern was full. The guests were toasting and drinking loudly. Among these guests, there were mercenaries, dwarves, thieves, and even desert bandits. Su Luan also saw some orcs and barbarians. The maids were like butterflies flying around the tables. From time to time, there would be one or two screams and laughter, followed by a series of curses. There was no need to guess. "A cup of Heart of Flames, please." Sulen sat down on the bar counter and tossed a NAR over. His arrival attracted the attention of some people around him. Sulen didn't look like a mercenary. In a dark corner, a few eyes glanced back and forth at Sulen's clothes and money bag from time to time, judging whether this person was a fat sheep, whether he was strong or not, and whether he was worth their time. In the corner of the tavern, there were several figures hidden in the darkness. They were shadow dancers, an advanced class of rogues. They were proficient in assassination and liked to use curved swords and daggers. They were the best assassins and assassins. As long as they were paid well, there was no one they didn't dare to kill. Of course, daring to kill and being able to kill were two different things. A few fierce-looking desert swordsmen with scars on their faces glanced at Sulen from time to time. This was a profession unique to the desert. They used scimitars, worked with agility, and attacked very quickly. At this time, one of the swordsmen was shaving with a knife. His eyes fell on Sulen's bulging pocket from time to time, and a trace of uncontrollable greed flashed in his eyes from time to time. As soon as Sulen entered the tavern, he felt the malicious gazes around him. Even the human mercenaries were secretly communicating with each other. The Shadow Wailing Tavern belonged to the dark corner of the city. It was said that the tavern was supported by the Shadow Brotherhood. The Shadow Brotherhood was also notorious on the continent. "Your Heart of Flames." A scantily dressed maid put a glass of strong liquor in front of Sulen. She even deliberately sat on his lap with a big, white, and soft peach. The pair of huge breasts in front of her chest almost hit his face. Her eyes were hot and full of provocation. Her small tongue licked her bright red lips as if she was looking at a delicious food. Su-Len took the wine glass. He was not interested in this maid. Although this body had a good figure and was beautiful, Su-Len, who had been spoiled for a long time, did not like to be with others. Moreover, the strong dark aura showed that this woman was either a vampire or a sucking demoness. She was not only lusting after his body, but also his life essence. After casually sending her away, Su-Len picked up the wine glass and drank it in one gulp. This heart of flames was made with vodka and a few other spices. Drinking it was like drinking fire. When he put down the glass, he used a little force, and the glass was slightly dented. The bar counter of the tavern was made of iron oak wood. It was tough and sturdy. After seeing Su-Len casually use the glass to leave a dent on the table, the people who had been watching him looked away. Although these people in the tavern were not good people, they still had good eyesight. They knew what they were capable of and what kind of enemies they could not provoke. If they did not have good eyesight, they would not have survived. They would have been buried in the endless sandstorm outside the city. I want to ask for some information. Sullen's fingers tapped rhythmically on the bar counter. Sir, what information do you want to ask for? The tavern owner looked at the glass on the table. A hint of fear flashed through his eyes. Have you found any ancient ruins around this city recently? Su-Len asked. The tavern owner shook his head. This is the periphery of the desert. There are very few ruins. No new ruins have been found in the past 3 years. Su-Len nodded and continued to ask, You should have a map of this desert, right? I want a detailed map of this place. The oases and cities need to be marked on the map. Sure, but the price. The tavern owner heard Sullen's words and made an international gesture. How much? Su-Len smiled. If he could solve it with money, then he would solve it with money. The tavern owner gestured with his hand. 50 kinner. Not only are there oases and cities marked on the map, but there are also some ruins. Sure. Su-Len took out a bag and threw it on the bar counter. The sound of metal hitting metal came from the bag. This is the down payment. If I am satisfied with the map, I will give you the rest. The tavern owner reached out and grabbed the bag. He weighed it in his hand. There were at least 20 kinner inside. The crisp and melodious sound of gold coins colliding attracted the attention of some people around. Their eyes, which had been turned away, once again looked at Su-Len, but not as blatantly as before. The tavern owner looked satisfied and put away the bag. He got up and went into the room. After a while, he came out with a piece of parchment. This is the map you asked for. It should meet your requirements. Su-Len took the parchment and opened it. All the cities and most of the oases in the desert were marked on the parchment. There were even many ruins marked on it. Su-Len compared this map with the strategic map in his system. There were no mistakes. He nodded with satisfaction. The map he bought before only marked the approximate location of the ruins. With this more accurate map, it would be much easier to find the ruins. Not bad. This is your reward. Su-Len nodded and put away the map. He threw a bag of money to the tavern owner and got up to leave. Just as Su-Len left, a few people quietly followed him. With the map in hand, Su-Len didn't need to stay here. He planned to go to the ruins as soon as possible. But before that, he needed to recruit some people. After all, how long would it take for him to excavate the ruins alone? It was easy to hire people in this desert city. Compared to other areas, the people at the bottom of the desert had a harder time. Adventurers Guild. Su-Len saw many professionals here. Although the desert was dangerous, there were a lot of ruins buried in it. If they could bring something out of the ruins, they could easily sell it for a good price. Therefore, many adventurers liked to come here. Sir, how may I help you? A young man appeared in front of Su-Len. Judging from his clothes, he was the receptionist of the Adventurers Guild. I need to recruit some people. Su-Len looked at the receptionist and said, You want to issue a mission? Please come with me. Hearing Sullen's words, the receptionist's eyes lit up. He led Su Len to an office desk. After Su Len sat down, the receptionist smiled and said, "Sir, what mission do you want to issue? This is a form. You can fill it out." Su Len took the form and looked at it. Then, he filled it out according to his requirements. After a few minutes, he finished filling out the form and handed it to the receptionist. Exploring ancient ruins? You need 200 people to excavate? You also need an adventurer team. The difficulty of this mission has reached the A level. You need to pay at least 2,000 kinner. Do you agree? The receptionist looked at the form Su Len filled out and said, 2,000 gold nars, huh? Yes. Su Len nodded and said, "Since you agree, we will publish the mission information as soon as possible. Please tell us your contact address. If someone takes the mission, we will send someone to inform you." Su Len left 100 kinner as a deposit, then left the address of the hotel. He turned and left the Adventurers Guild. It would take some time to recruit people. Su Len intended to study some maps while he still had time. He now had 2 maps in his hand. Su Len intended to combine these 2 maps with the map in his system to find the exact location of the ruins he was looking for. At the same time, he also had to prepare some tools needed for the exploration of the ruins. Although these underground ruins had been buried for thousands of years, as the ruins left from the era of the Arcane Empire, Su Len would not be careless. The desert environment was harsh, but being buried by sand was also a kind of protection. There were likely to be a lot of mechanisms and traps inside. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.